The other members of the Mate series, the Mate 9 is big, as in physically huge. It's got pretty much the largest display you'll find in any mainstream Android phone, and it really pushes the limits of what will comfortably fit in your hand or in a jeans pocket. Yet it's not quite as unwieldy as you might think. Huawei crams a 5.9-inch screen into a body more or less the same size as the 5.5-inch iPhone 7 Plus, and the footprint is basically identical to Huawei's own 5.7-inch Nexus 6P. Let's cut to the chase on that screen, since it's the main attraction here. It's a 5.9-inch IPS LCD at 1080p resolution, and I'm mostly fine with that. It's tempting to turn your nose up at Full HD when we have so many great Quad HD phones now, but 1080 is easier on the battery, and the lower pixel density isn't really that noticeable. Anyway, even at only 1080p, the display looks great. It's nice and bright outdoors, colours are vibrant but not too over the top. Colour balance is a little on the cool side, but a quick trip to the display menu is all it takes to fix that up. There's not a whole lot to say about the aluminium unibody that makes up the rest of the Mate 9's design. Huawei isn't reinventing the wheel here. This is just the latest iteration of a design that's been refining since 2014's Mate 7, and it really is about refinement. Huawei has trimmed down the bezels and slimmed down the phone's profile to make the Mate 9 much more ergonomic than you'd expect. The design is rounded off by some important smaller details like a gentle curve to the side walls and a subtle brushed pattern which catches the light at certain angles. Okay, so none of this is exactly revolutionary, it's the same kind of design that OnePlus and others have been riffing on for the past year, but it looks good, it's comfortable to hold and use, and that's all the more important in a big phone like this. On the inside, get ready for a veritable banquet of homemade Huawei hardware. Highlights include the company's very latest Kirin 960 chip, the first to use the speedy, efficient new Cortex A73 cores, big step up from the last generation. You also get ARM's new Mali G71 GPU, the powerful new graphics chip rumoured to come in the Galaxy S8 next year. Technobabble aside, this is cutting-edge smartphone hardware, which should compete with some of the stuff that we're going to see next year. And as is traditional for a Mate phone, there's an enormous battery lurking within, 4000 mAh, way bigger than any other mainstream phone. When it comes to battery life, it's as dependable as ever. It's absolutely possible to get 7 or 8 hours of screen on time out of this thing depending on what you're doing, although heavy camera use and patchy LTE connections will quickly cut this down. To charge up that big old battery, you've got Huawei's new supercharge tech, juicing up your phone at up to 5 amps at 4.5 volts. That means faster charging with less heat, and it is ludicrously fast. Up to around 70%, you can practically watch the percentage numbers tick up. Real world example to give you a little perspective. Supercharge can take you from the danger zone to the point where you'll probably last the rest of the day in just the time it takes to eat a sandwich and drink a cup of coffee.
Hardware's all well and good. Huawei's been making great hardware for years, but it's frequently tripped up on the software side. The real difference with the Mate 9 is that the software is now as good as the hardware.
The new EMUI 5, based on Android 7.0, is an enormous step forward. Basically everything that was weird or broken in EMUI 4 now works as it should. It now feels more like an Android phone and less like a bizarro world iPhone clone. You get standard Android notifications, a normal recent apps menu, you can even have a normal app drawer if you want, something that wasn't possible before without a custom launcher. And because EMUI is no longer at odds with Android, you get the benefit of some genuinely useful features without having to fight all the visual changes. All of that with a skin that's relatively hands-off by Android standards. The stuff that has been customized actually looks decent with a clean, uncluttered blue and white color scheme. And if you want to go completely nuts with the way things look, you can still head to the built-in Themes app and fill your home screen with monkeys, Santa, or anime characters, because of course why wouldn't you do that? Huawei also claims its new phone can maintain performance over time, avoiding the bit rot that tends to set in with most devices as the months pass. The phone uses machine learning to help work out which apps need more performance to keep the most important apps running smoothly. It's hard to nail down how much of that is real optimization and how much is just clever marketing combined with the fact the phone is fast anyway, so we'll need to revisit this in a few months and see how it holds up. Around the back, Huawei has once again partnered with Leica to bring a new dual camera setup to the Mate 9. You've got two sensors back there, a 12 megapixel color sensor with optical stabilization and a 20 megapixel black and white sensor for picking up extra detail. It's similar to what we saw from the Huawei P9 and Honor 8 earlier in the year, except with the benefit of OIS for the color sensor and a much higher res black and white sensor. That translates into better low light performance and improved fine detail capture, and overall, the Mate 9 comes surprisingly close to some of the very best Android cameras out there. Having two cameras also lets you add all sorts of depth effects to your photos, like simulating low depth of field here, and thanks to the improved optics, these look better than ever. I'm not quite as confident that the Mate 9 will nail every shot perfectly, the way the Google Pixel and Galaxy S7 tend to. It isn't really that far behind, it just takes a little bit more effort to get great shots sometimes. Also, colours are a little muted generally for my liking, and shots can sometimes look overexposed when the auto HDR mode kicks in. And there's a weird high ISO mode that gets activated in very dark conditions, which only ever seems to produce terrible grainy looking shots. Pro mode is just a swipe away though, and with patience, a steady hand, and the right combination of settings, well, the results can be pretty amazing. It's also worth mentioning the Mate 9's hybrid zoom function, which uses the higher res monochrome sensor to let you zoom up to 6 times to capture more detail. Now, I was ready to call BS on this when I first heard about it, but in fact it does work pretty well. You really do get to see more detail in zoomed shots, though with diminishing returns after 2x. Sure, it's no substitute for an actual telephoto lens like the iPhones in most situations, but it's a decent stand-in. So, bottom line, the Huawei Mate 9 is a great big phone in every sense of that term. It's easily Huawei's best phone yet, and it underscores just how far the company has come in the past year, especially when it comes to software, performance, and camera. And what's surprising is it really doesn't have that much in the way of direct competition, especially in Europe, where the LG V20 didn't go on sale, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, well, you get the idea. There are compromises though, just like there are with every phone. You miss out on water resistance, something Samsung and Apple both offer. I feel like the UI, though it is improved, will still be a little too different for a few folks, and although the camera is good, it doesn't quite hit that tip-top level occupied by the Pixel and the GS7. And of course you'll need to be all in on big phones to even consider a 5.9-incher like the Mate 9. But if a big screen is a big priority for you, and there are plenty of reasons why it should be, then the Mate 9 is a fantastic choice.